Well, good evening and welcome to Queer News Tonight. This is the world's first and only LGBTQ plus daily evening television news. We're broadcasting live and then available on demand. And we're available on all smart televisions, including Roku, Apple Television, Android TV, Amazon Fire TV, YouTube, and Facebook. It's time to queer up the news. It's Wednesday, May 10th, 2023. We are live and literally out of the closet and into the headlines. So many of your important stories we're going to tell this evening on Queer News Tonight.
This is the world's first live daily LGBTQ evening news show, literally out of the closet and into the headlines on Queer News Tonight with Al Ferguson.
I'm your anchor at Queer News Tonight, Al Ferguson, and this evening we bring you the news of and a perspective representing the LGBTQ plus community from South Florida, America, and across our planet.
This is the world's first and only unedited live LGBTQ plus evening news show. Whatever happens unique in LGBTQ plus news, you will see it and hear it.
HOTspots Magazine Happening Out Television Network is a nonprofit 501c3 media company in the same models of PBS and NPR, but designed for the LGBTQ plus community. Our mission? To support the 10 pillars of our LGBTQ plus community. We want to inform and educate the key issues of our Black community, Latino, lesbian, trans, students, youth, seniors, HIV, AIDS, healthcare, business, political advocacy, and faith. Help us support our communities.
We are part of one of the largest LGBTQ plus media companies in America, HOTspots Magazine and Happening Out Television Network. Our magazine is celebrating 38 years of the LGBTQ plus experience, and our television news, talk, and entertainment shows support our mission to educate the LGBTQ plus and broader community.
Well, let's begin by welcoming back anchor Fay What. She is a radio and television personality and has a popular blog and YouTube channel aiming to unite the L and the G together. She's a hostess and MC for many South Florida events, an animal advocate, and owner of Fay's Fur Family. Also, make sure to catch the Fay What Show, the first LGBTQ plus morning show, Mondays at 9 a.m. Eastern, online or your favorite smart television. And Fay was the winner of the 2022 SFGN Best Local Television Personality. Welcome, Fay.
I am so happy to be back from Spain. I missed you all. I want to give a big shout out to Wham, right, and also to ArtServe. They had an incredible event yesterday with Meet the Queens, and they allowed me to be the moderator. It was me, Daisy Dead Petals, TP Lords, Tiffany Arriagas, Velva Lenore. I mean, I had the best of the best, and they were just incredible, incredible people. Shasta McNasty, I love you, girl. And it was just a wonderful time. Thank you so much for allowing me to moderate that evening. It was a lot of fun. Love you, folks. Next up, let's welcome my brother from another mother. You know him as John Hayden. He's a journalist for 28 years, and he now works for several outlets, including SFGN as senior reporter and community editor, covering politics, entertainment, and local events directly impacting the LGBTQ plus community. John's interviewed everyone, from presidents to Oscar winners. He was on the Big Gay Cruise last week, and his body is still craving a cocktail at 9 a.m. and pizza at midnight. Pizza, is that the last name of the guy Jose over there? No?
Yes.
Welcome, John. How are you, puppy?
Oh my God, so good. Had so much fun. Missed you.
I missed you.
You know, I think it's good that we try to like align our vacations together so that way we don't have to be separated like twice as often.
I agree.
You two were gone?
Oh. Wow.
And on that note,
Yeah.
let's welcome Kal Gajraj. Kal is a first. I was trying to think of something shady to say, and I just blanked.
Didn't work.
I need my midnight pizza.
Just mention him.
Oh, that's what that is. I thought we were landing planes. Kal is a first-generation Muslim American. He is an award-winning communications executive and diversity officer for government healthcare programs. Kal is also a professor at the Miami-Dade College School of Global Business and an advisory board member for the University of South Florida's College of Business. Welcome, Kal.
Thanks so much. And I was at the Wham event last night as well, and it was so much fun just to see everyone and the perspectives and hear from the drag queens in our community. Yeah. Let's welcome anchor Ryan Hurst. Ryan is the Senior Major Gifts and Events Officer for the National LGBTQ Task Force. He has worked in social justice for over 10 years with organizations like Lambda Legal Defense and Education Fund and People for the American Way Foundation. Welcome, Ryan.
Thank you very much, and I'm very excited to be here. We are the reporters for Queer News Tonight, and this evening we begin with the queer headlines. The LGBTQ+ community in South Florida and across America is diverse. Our community across the world is vast. And here are the bullet points for the queer news for today, Wednesday, May 10th.
Well, first, let's queer up LGBTQ+ civil rights. The Texas House to debate removing law that makes homosexual conduct a crime. The Texas House of Representatives had a debate on a piece of legislation that would strike the unconstitutional and unenforceable criminal offense of homosexual conduct from state law books. House Bill 2055, introduced this session by Dallas Democratic Representative Venton Jones, was listed on the Daily House calendar, which contains the list of new bills and resolutions scheduled by the committee on calendars for the full chamber to consider. The proposal would change two parts of the state code related to LGBTQ+ relationships. If this bill becomes law, it would first remove the phrase, quote, that homosexual conduct is not an acceptable lifestyle, end quote, from the Health and Safety Code, while it would also no longer make that a prosecutable crime in Texas. Up until 2003, consensual sex between two people of the same gender was explicitly illegal in the state of Texas under the Texas homosexual conduct law. That changed when the U.S. Supreme Court invalidated the law in its ruling in the Lawrence v. Texas case that year. The legislation cleared the House Criminal Jurisprudence Committee, and by a unanimous vote, by the way, on April 4th, which allowed the bill to eventually get debated in the full chamber. At least 73 representatives, including several conservative Republicans, have now added their names to it as co-authors. This signals that more than a majority of the Texas House support the bill, creating hope among LGBTQ+ advocates that these changes might finally gain some traction. Well, if you're expecting me to say congratulations, Texas, I'm not going to say it. First off, I laughed in my head in the fact that this law still sits on the books.
Prehistoric. I mean, hello.
It's like, this is not 1967. In George Bush the First, remember Bush v. Gore? It was illegal to have sex among homosexuals in Texas. It's just breathtaking. So congratulations, I guess, to all of those that are signing on to the law to say, well, finally, 20 years later, we've caught up with the rest of America.
Oh my God.
That's all I've got.
It's still Texas, Al. All right. This is not a win for anybody. I mean, come on. Like, they're literally just like, hey, be happy about this. Don't worry about the rest of the shit that we're throwing at you, right? But you get to have gay sex now.
Yeah,
I mean, this is something that is
but now our drag queens and our trans people, wait.
Yeah. Well, you know, there are a lot of dead laws on the books that have been, you know, basically nullified. But as we found out with abortion last year, that one Supreme Court ruling could let these come back into place. But we say 2003, 20 years ago, it was an attorney, but that overruled a law or a ruling from, a reversal ruling from only 16 years before, when I believe it was Georgia had their sodomy statute held up by the Supreme Court. So that it was really a tectonic shift in a short period of time. So we should celebrate that this is held up for 20 years.
Did you figure out some way to say congratulations to Texas? Did I hear that in any possible way?
No, I'm just saying. No, my point is just how quickly the legal tides seem to be shifting these days from one to another. So it's nice to see them trying to take this off the book. And it was a Democrat that proposed it. So yay, Texas Democrats.
Yeah. Not only a Texas Democrat, but State Representative Venton Jones, who is openly LGBT. I had the pleasure of getting to work with him previously at the National Black Justice Coalition. He has been in the movement for a long time. This is a win for LGBTQ people in Texas. That's just one less thing that they have to worry about coming down from the Supreme Court. not congratulating Texas, definitely congratulating Representative Jones and the LGBTQ people of Texas.
Okay,
At least
take
they're
it back.
catching up.
Congratulations
They're catching up.
to
Yeah.
Representative Jones. Right.
Well, and let's remember, last week DeSantis wouldn't even, in Florida, DeSantis wouldn't even say gay people, he talks about protecting children. He wouldn't say that we should still have the right to get married, should still have the right to exist, and he likely probably doesn't believe we should have the right to have consensual sex in our own homes. So from this perspective, Texas is more liberal than
Oh my God.
Florida?
Wait. And that
When it
John
goes down.
throws that out at the last second.
Is he right?
Let's see. He is right.
Oh my God.
And likely, very likely, DeSantis not answering this very specific question on marriage is a foretelling of what DeSantis really thinks. Does anyone think that the Supreme Court, even in the environment of what our Supreme Court is, could reverse Lawrence? Does anyone even think it's possible?
No. There's no state even trying to do it right now.
All right. I just wanted to make sure. Okay. All right. There.
I'm just not in the mood of saying the Supreme Court won't do anything. I don't want to jinx it. Like, knock on wood.
Right. It's like, all right.
No, it'll never happen.
Makes me want to say hee-haw. All right, up next, let's queer up South Florida gay news. In Wilton Manors changes Stonewall Festival permit to comply with controversial new law. A principled stand or bitter pragmatism? There were no good choices, only passionate pleas at last night's City Commission meeting. In this week's SFGN, online now and on stands tomorrow, I look at how DeSantis and the GOP are affecting next month's Stonewall event in Wilton Manors. Last night's City Commission meeting, the panel voted unanimously to amend the party's permit to ensure compliance with a new law that essentially declares all live drag entertainment as adult entertainment. Queens play an integral part in Stonewall and most prides throughout the world. They host parades and stages as well as perform, but it appears that will not be the case next month's event. This is a gut punch to the very soul of LGBTQ plus culture. Many people came to speak out against changing the permit, including dozens of entertainers representing local venues. Coco Lords told me, quote, "I'm here to make sure we are heard and seen, to show that we are one community and we have to represent each other and stand up for each other," end quote. They were passionate, commissioners were empathetic, but in the end, they acquiesced. What is the alternative? To openly defy the law would give DeSantis the excuse he needs to remove commissioners and install his own government over Wilton. That could be the death knell to LGBTQ+ in Greater Wilton Manors. It now falls to Stonewall Pride CEO Jeff Sterling to comply. He told me, quote, "We may be constrained by the narrowest interpretation of the law today, but that does not dissuade us from our long-term fight against injustice against our community." And you know, for me, I'm split. My head agrees with this strategy, but my heart doesn't.
Yeah.
It may be a year, 5 years, or 10 years, but at some point, my drag and trans sisters and brothers will ask me if I stood for them in the darkest and most difficult times, and I will be ashamed, too ashamed to look them in the eye, and I will lower my head and I will say no. And this is one of the hardest decisions I think many of us have had to come to. Some communities deal with it a little bit easier because they're not as invested in the LGBTQ+ community, but this really hurts. And like many people said on both sides of the issue, there are no good choices for this.
There are no words. Like, how do you have pride without drag queens? You just, I'm really at a loss for words. I mean, there is no winning in this at all. And I don't know why. I really did feel like there was going to be some kind of miracle to happen, right? Somebody to come and save the day and say, okay, this is not going to, it's
definitely no miracle coming. No miracles coming.
Why is no one, I don't understand this. I'm not an attorney. Why is no one like filing for an injunction while this plays through the court? I'm assuming because nobody can officially show harm yet and has standing to bring a case. I just don't understand why there's not an injunction or someone trying to say, wait for this, wait to enforce this until it has worked its way through the courts.
We can't enforce something that hasn't happened yet. So that's part of the legal trouble as well. So in preparation for an event like this, I mean, number one, like how do they even keep the name Stonewall? for the Pride
Without
Pride
drag
Festival
queens.
without drag queens.
You're absolutely right.
You know, so they have to start from there. And two, you know, it's very interesting because, you know, last night, you know, like Faye and I were at the event at the World's AIDS Museum, and at the same time that the city commission meeting was going on, and these drag queens and entertainers were talking about how unsafe they feel even walking down the streets of Wilton Manors, the gayest city in the country.
Yeah.
You know, and now this is happening, and you know, to be considered gay, you know, adult entertainment, sorry, you know, what is that supposed to mean? You know, is it, you know, are they going to fence the streets? Are they going to put up black curtains? What's going to happen? Is it just 18 plus? There's so many questions that are just left unanswered from this, and no one really knows exactly what to do or to make the wrong move.
Yeah. And I know you were asking rhetorically, Faye, but there is no pride without drag queens. There's no pride without drag queens. There's no pride without our trans siblings. There's no pride without our lesbian sisters. There's no pride without people of color. I mean, we are a diverse and intersectional community. This doesn't feel right. This doesn't feel, to your point, John, it hurts the heart. This doesn't feel like a true celebration of pride if we have to exclude any part of our community. I understand where the city council is coming from. We've seen from Governor DeSantis his willingness to abuse his power to remove political opponents from office. We saw that from the state attorney in Tampa in Hillsborough County. And frankly, the state legislature is a rubber stamp for him. It might as well be the Russian Duma. They're just approving anything that, you know, our would-be fascist governor wants to do. And to your point, do we make Pride 18 and up? How do we have Pride without our families?
Right.
Pride has always been a celebration of our families, our families that we choose, our families that we make. How do we not include our families?
And maybe 2023 becomes the year that Pride becomes a protest again.
Even if it does become a protest, it won't accomplish all of the things that Ron just said.
Yeah.
A lot of observations to unpack. First off, this conversation is representation that DeSantis and the radical inner circle of the GOP in Florida is getting exactly what they want. This moment of conversation of going protest, but wait, how do we do that, is exactly what they want to do. They want to divide the LGBTQ, add drag queens, and split us apart. They want to separate our acronym letters. They want to split us away from drag queens. They want to split us away from the trans community, and so far they're successful in doing that. So that's one point. The other is I'm worried about that in like this example, that we place our anger against those that are not where our anger should be placed. Our anger should be placed at the governor's mansion. Our anger should be placed on the supermajority of Florida. Our anger shouldn't be placed on the city commission of Wilton Manors.
Or Jeff Sterling.
Or Jeff Sterling. Or whoever, in terms of trying to administer what the legal laws of the state of Florida are. So I caution. I have gotten into so many conversations when I've been talking over the last couple of months about what we've been leading into that happened in this legislation, this legislative session, of so many people saying, just ignore the law. And I'm going, wait, that's not a realistic answer. You can't ignore the law. And then they say, Dean Trentellis, the mayor of Fort Lauderdale, says that Fort Lauderdale just will ignore it. No, Dean Trentellis has never said that. And the city of Fort Lauderdale cannot ignore it. This is the law of equating. We did this long, very in-depth story about how prurient definitions from the Supreme Court was the implementation of this law of defining lewd and lascivious behavior. Drag in the state of Florida is viewed as adult entertainment. We know that that's not true, but that is the law of the state of Florida. Now we have to figure out the way to defeat it. And because we didn't turn out in the propensity that we should have, this is the law of the land now. And we have to suffer the consequences of not being there when we needed to be there, to defeat a governor, to defeat senators and people in the House of Representatives. The other thing that I want to point out that I was directly involved in is your comment of whether this goes on a year or 5 years or 10 years. I went through 10 years. In Tampa, County Commissioner Rhonda Storms passed a law in, I believe, 2004, 2005, somewhere in there, that no county resources could be spent on anything to do with LGBT in Hillsborough County. The functional act of doing that was a ban on all LGBT in Hillsborough County. Because how do you hold a Pride festival or parade without police and fire? So as a result, there was no Pride in Tampa, Florida for 10 years. I participated with one of the lead units in 2015 for the return of Pride in overturning, but it took 10 years to overturn that function. And we're talking about a county commissioner in Tampa, not a governor in the state of Florida who is going to run for president of the United States. That is the foe that we face. One last thought. I've asked a number of questions of the validity of the fears about removal that John talks about in his story. I interviewed the state attorney in Tampa that was removed and asked him specifically, could you see the governor coming into cities and removing key components of the management of a city? And his answer was, of course, look at me. I'm the state attorney for Hillsborough County and removed. He's suing and he's pursuing it, but he says yes. 2 weeks ago, I spoke to one of the city commissioners at Wilton Manors on the condition it would be off record, but I'm going to repeat it for the first time, that conversation. I asked specifically, is the city of Wilton Manors concerned the possibility of the city manager of Wilton Manors being removed by the governor if they do not follow this law? The answer, yes. Are you concerned that the police chief of Wilton Manors could be removed if he didn't follow the law? The answer is yes. It gets worse. Are city commissioners worried that they could be removed by Governor Ron DeSantis in Wilton Manors if they do not follow this law? Yes. Last question. Are you concerned that the mayor of Wilton Manors could be removed by the governor of Florida? Yes. We're dealing with a behemoth. So we need to focus our whatever this is going to become now on the right places to attack the Wilton Manors City Commission, the mayor, the city manager, the police department, or any of the related functions anywhere is misguided. We hate this, but let's focus our attention on those that should be focused on. And that is Governor Ron DeSantis. That's where it is. One last thing. If we boycott, I'm just saying flatly, if we boycott this parade, we are fundamentally harming our community. I understand completely the issues about drag queens. And really, at the end of the day, in my opinion, the attack on drag queens is a secondary step to get to the trans community. But if we don't loudly show up at that parade carrying signs of what the fascist governor is in Florida so the entire world sees it, I think we're making a mistake. And I'm telling you, Fay and I will be on the main stage at that Pride if there are 22 people there saying on Apple Television and Roku, this is Wilton Manors and we're ground zero of the fight of that election on the first Tuesday of 2024. You better be gunning up right now for the vote of your lifetime. If anyone in our community goes, voting doesn't matter, turn to the left and turn to the right and see if that answer is still true.
Next up, let's queer up the worldview. One of Rio de Janeiro's first openly gay city councilors dies at 37. David Miranda, a Brazilian politician, has died following a 9-month battle in intensive care, according to a tweet on Tuesday from his husband, journalist Glenn Greenwald. David was 37 years old. Miranda was elected as one of the first openly gay city councilors in Rio de Janeiro in 2016 and went on to serve in Brazil's Congress in 2019. Miranda withdrew his candidacy for re-election in September 2022 after 6 weeks in the ICU suffering from a gastrointestinal infection. His death led to an outpouring of tributes online. Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva called Miranda, quote, a young man with an extraordinary trajectory who left too soon, end quote, on Twitter. Greenwald has been at the forefront of the high-profile reports for exposing secrets in U.S. intelligence programs, with the cooperation of former NSA contractor Edward Snowden. Greenwald broke the story of the existence of a U.S. National Security Agency program that is thought to have collected large amounts of phone and internet data. In 2013, Miranda was detained and interrogated at London's Heathrow Airport for 9 hours by British security forces under Schedule 7 of the Terrorism Act 2000 as he was flying back to Rio from Berlin. According to a profile from Time magazine, Miranda met Greenwald in 2005 when he was playing volleyball on Ipanema Beach and accidentally knocked over an American tourist drink. That tourist was attorney Glenn Greenwald. The pair fell in love and moved in together after just 5 days. Rest in peace, Mr. Miranda. I've got to say, I don't know, I smell a conspiracy theory. You were leaking secrets. You were saying that people were doing bad things. I think somebody poisoned you. That's just my thoughts. I'm just saying, look out. And thoughts and prayers to your husband. Anybody else?
Well, I think QueerAnon's going to take up your
my
conspiracy theory. I mean, obviously, this is a tremendous tragedy that a young LGBT elected leader was taken from us too young, especially in a country that just got over their own Trump and
fascism.
Trying to move
into. Got over their own Trump. We should say got over their own DeSantis.
Yes. Yeah. And are trying to move into, a more progressive direction. Hopefully other leaders are inspired by him and continue to run for office.
And hopefully his message in his brief life, in his brief time in the public view, got out beyond the borders of Rio de Janeiro. Because much like America, Rio is a very, or like Miami or Wilton, Manors, but Rio is a very gay-centric place, very open, huge Mardi Gras festivals, world-class.
Carnival, yeah.
Yeah, but when you get out much beyond the borders of Rio itself, it gets very conservative, very anti-gay. So it's a shame to lose someone like him. Hopefully his message will resonate throughout the countryside of Brazil. Rest in peace, my friend.
One other thought before we move on to Ryan. We always, when we have the opportunity to talk about Brazil, we're happy about the return of more democratic process in Brazil. If you haven't been to Brazil, it's someplace every LGBT person should visit, not only because of Rio de Janeiro. I have been to São Paulo a number of times, but they hold the biggest Pride festival in the world. 2 million people attend the Pride Parade in São Paulo.
Wow.
I need a Xanax thinking about that.
Well, next let's queer up gaming. New exhibit in Spain shows how gaming and queer culture go hand in hand. Masiva Research Group and the Arts Research Center of Miguel Hernandez University are currently running the exhibition Gaming Problems Queer Play at La Escudor Cultural Center in Spain. The exhibition is open until May 21st. It is a multimedia exhibit to analyze the links between the LGBTQ+ space and the world of video games, relating issues such as inclusiveness and sexual diversity with digital playful practice and interactive narratives, with experts from the sector and students from the Miguel Hernandez University of Elche. The exhibition aims to address the complexity of the phenomenon of video games and their ability to transgress their playful function and become a medium with a cultural impact, capable not only of telling complex stories, but also generating knowledge and contributing to education and the improvement of our society. This is the second edition of the gaming project, which was presented in 2022 in Valencia, Spain, with an exhibition that revolved around the consideration of the video game as a cultural object. That led to publication of the book, Playing Culture. The project lands for the first time in Elche, taking another step towards its objective of disseminating the social, cultural, and educational utility of video games and collaborating within the framework of activities of the LGBTQ+ festival Diversa 2023. This is such an interesting concept to me because the gaming community is a community all within its own. It brings people and connects them together from across the world. We see such complex and beautiful stories in games. Look at the most successful television show probably of this year, The Last of Us, started off as a video game with a really powerful queer character, and we got to see that story play out on HBO this year. It was just a fantastic story. But we're also seeing gaming evolve into the virtual reality space that is building and connecting people across countries, across different cultures, where they can have complex conversations about things like what it means to be queer, LGBT rights, how to advance and organize. I love that.
You know, Fay, I wanted to ask you, this story generates, the event generates in Spain. You've just come back from Spain. What was your reaction of the LGBT presence you were in Madrid, Malaga, and Barcelona?
Very open, very out there. There were so many lesbians. I love that. There were lesbians everywhere. But I mean, you know, and anybody who I ask, because you know how we are, we'll start talking to the Uber drivers about how LGBTQ plus folks are treated and stuff like that. And, you know, I did that everywhere we went. We went to Madrid, we went to Malaga, and we went to Barcelona. And across the board, everyone would say, we just don't talk about it. You know, like you can be gay all you want. You're just not going to get your rights. But you can be gay out on the streets and have a great gay pride and all that fun stuff, but don't expect any rights out of it. Sad, but they seem to be fine with it.
Yeah.
You know, and when it comes to gaming, I didn't know how popular gaming was in our LGBTQ plus community. I had no idea. So I tried to play The Last of Us the other day, and I couldn't get out of the freaking basement. Like, I just could not get out. It's not for me. I tried, David. I tried.
Yeah, and Fay's not even talking about a game.
Next, let's clear up business. Do boycotts work for them or us? As Bud Light Trans and Equality Florida travel ban gives us a clue. Anheuser-Busch parent company AB InBev is optimistic about its future, despite calls for a Bud Light boycott following a marketing partnership with transgender influencer Dylan Mulvaney. While Bud Light volume declined in the U.S. over the first 3 weeks of April following the uproar, the dip represented just 1% of overall global volumes for the period. However, this raises the question of how effective are boycotts like the Bud Light faces. It can be difficult to make a boycott eat into long-term sales. Boycotts on or by nonprofit organizations also fail to have the adverse effect in a longer time frame. We can consider boycotts by Equality Florida calling for no travel to Florida work. Has it really stopped the community from traveling to the States? Has the Disney versus DeSantis battle stopped the conservative community and others from watching Disney content? Despite anti-LGBTQ plus laws and discrimination, Florida has one of the largest LGBTQ plus populations in America. LGBTQ plus allies are everywhere, specifically Tampa's gay mayor, Fort Lauderdale's gay mayor, Visit Lauderdale's Richard Gray, which is the largest LGBTQ tourism organization in the world, Miami Conventions and Visitors Bureaus, Dan Rios, which is the second largest LGBTQ plus tourism organization in America, and even Disney, with more LGBTQ plus employees than any business in the world. It's very interesting because we always talk about these boycotts and people falling out and, you know, protesting against these brands, and they seem to never work. They only get to effect on social media, but it doesn't really go to the far effect as, you know, dipping into a large percentage of sales for these organizations. From my perspective, what I've seen so far in the quote-unquote fallout from Bud Light is that more of the LGBTQ plus community has now, you know, opted into drinking Bud Light and supporting the brand itself. Even some of the parents of my LGBTQ plus friends, you know, they're supporting Bud Light and they're, you know, openly, you know, posting about Bud Light on social media and just promoting the brand. And I think the people who are just like, they just don't want to drink it, just don't drink it. There's other beers that are out there.
Well, and the decline 1%, like that really is going to be anything to like affect them. I mean, come on, boycott. Listen, boycott if it makes you feel better, all right? Boycott if it makes you feel like a better human being, all right? I don't eat Chick-fil-A, okay? I refuse. I will never eat a hate sandwich. Screw you, Chick-fil-A. I'll wipe my ass with you, okay? But there's a line around the corner at the Chick-fil-A by my house every freaking day. Me not going there to get a hate sandwich does shit for them, okay? So that's the truth.
Yeah.
Well, you know, though,
it still makes me a good person, though.
When the boycotts against Chick-fil-A first came out, it did make a difference in at least from their public relations, because they did come out and say, okay, we're going to stop giving to this and we're not going to do this. Ultimately, when we saw their financials a year or two later, they still did. But, you know, but they at least paid lip service to our community. I remember Gay Days has never and is still not an official event at the Disney park. But, oh, the conservatives were so bad because Disney was just letting gay people in. And this is like back in the day, 20, 30 years ago. But Disney survived. The people that embrace us generally see our boycotts work. The people that boycott out of hate, sheer hate, they usually fail. Maybe that's just karmic justice, but that's how I've seen it play out for years.
Well, and going back to Equality Florida, that decision must have not been easy for them to do. It's not an easy thing to say, hey, don't come to the state where we're at. But they were really thinking about the safety of our LGBTQ plus folks from other states.
Yeah. Oh, and I'm sorry, real quick. One thing about Ron DeSantis, when this Bud Light thing came out, he was like, oh, you know what? I'm not going to do it. We can't deal with woke companies. My wife and I just like to have a Guinness. Spoiler alert, Ron. Guinness is very pro-LGBT. If you watch over the next few weeks, you're probably going to see some rainbow Guinness stuff out there. So, cheers, buddy boy.
Business boycotts fail. Drop mic. They don't work. Study after study after study has shown that. We have the attention of ants. And so as a result, they don't work because we don't pay attention to them. If we like the product, we consume the product. If we don't like the product, we wouldn't have consumed the product anyway. One of the top criticisms of boycotts is like when we watch Kid Rock, in that disgusting TikTok that he did with a high-powered rifle machine gun shooting the Bud Light cans. The horrible representation of that and how that was going to dramatically affect Bud Light. Bud Light reports a 1% decline, but they've reported this week that they have completely returned to normal. So the boycott's over already, just in weeks. Mulvaney and Dylan, cute as all get out, by the way. It was a nice story that she was able to do that, and Bud Light doing a kind of a side marketing opportunity with her. And all of the boycotts, but let's boycott Bud Light because they didn't vigorously support Dylan Mulvaney. You know, it just goes back and forth like a ping pong ball, and playing a game. And often, I have seen situations where our attention span is so short that I can't help but wonder, do we use the conversations, especially in social media, of boycott as an excuse that we've done something, but we really haven't done anything?
Yeah.
I would much rather you give $25 to the National Task Force than advocate any boycott.
I would too.
Because, yes, from your seat. But at least you're taking action. Yeah. I would much rather you get somebody registered to vote and take them to the polls, and at the minimum, vote yourself. But boycotts don't work. No. They flatly do not work. Business boycotts do not work. And when we criticize Kid Rock for what he did, how can we not criticize ourselves for doing the exact same thing? Maybe not as repulsively as he did, but we're advocating the exact same thing. They don't work.
Next, we are proud of our special partnership with Sunshine Cathedral, the world's largest queer church right here in Fort Lauderdale. Supporting that partnership, we're broadcasting from our permanent set here at Sunshine Cathedral at the Happening Out television studios. We broadcast Sunshine Cathedral Sunday International Service at 10:30 a.m.
Well, next, conservatives claim we are trying to take over the world. I'm okay with that, but we're just looking for fun things to do, and we call it the gay agenda.
The Gay Agenda. HOTspots presents Scott Holland's What's Hot This Week. Every issue of HOTspots includes Scott Holland's What's Hot list of the top events and happening in South Florida. This weekend, you can get things started off right on Thursday with Elvis Duran's Spring Break, featuring One Republic at the Hard Rock Live at Seminole Hard Rock Hotel and Casino Hollywood at 8 p.m. Friday features Titanium at Eagle Wilton Manors, featuring DJ AJ Reddy and DJ Dimitri. Also on Friday, the Gay Men's Chorus of South Florida presents a very special karaoke at Scandal Saloon at 7 p.m. On Saturday, start your night with the South Florida Pride Wind Ensemble as they present A Night at the Pops at the Broward Center. After that, head over to Twist on South Beach for a night of dancing with DJ Alex Ferber until 5 a.m. The weekend doesn't end there, as on Monday night, you can catch RuPaul's Drag Race UK star Bag of Chips at Hamburger Mary's in Wilton Manors. Make sure to pick up the newest issue of HOTspots to find out more about these and other events.
That is today's news for the LGBTQ+ community on the world's first and only daily LGBTQ+ evening news show.
If our community is important to you, then share this news with your friends and family. Are you, like most of America, part of our very large television audience watching this live LGBTQ+ news broadcast right now on Roku, Apple TV, Android TV, and the always fashionable Amazon Fire TV?
Queer News Tonight is the only live LGBTQ+ digital television show in the world that is out of the closet and into the headlines. We need your support. If our community is to grow, we must tell our stories and bring them to the attention of the broader world.
This is the only place in the world that tells these types of LGBTQ+ stories in motion and sound. This is the passion of HOTspots magazine, Happening Out Television Network, and Queer News Tonight.
I'm your anchor, Al Ferguson, and on behalf of these LGBTQ+ reporters, the anchors of Queer News Tonight, including Fay What, John Hayden, Kal Gajraj, and Ryan Hurst. We will see you daily at 8 p.m. And to our LGBTQ+ world, we wish you
Good night.
Bye.